Caitlin Clark has captivated the nation, breaking scoring records in college and bringing women's basketball to a whole new audience. Now in the WNBA, she's turning even non-sports fans into diehard supporters. The former Hawkeye turned Indiana Fever guard is the subject of a new book from sports journalist Christine Brennan. The book is called On Her Game, Caitlin Clark and the Revolution in Women's Sports. I spoke with Brennan about the book. You'll hear that entire interview in just a minute. It includes Clark's rise to fame and how it compares to other superstars Brennan has covered, like Serena Williams and Simone Biles. We also discussed how the state of Iowa and its love for women's basketball helped make Caitlin Clark who she is. There's also some contention. In her book, Brennan writes that the WNBA was unprepared for Caitlin Clark's entrance and says Clark's snub from the Olympic team was the worst decision she's ever seen from an Olympic selection committee. The book comes out Tuesday, July 8th. Brennan is coming to Iowa later this month as part of her book tour. She'll be in Ames on July 14th, Des Moines on July 15th, and on July 16th, she'll be at the University of Iowa Athletics Hall of Fame for a discussion with Iowa head coach Jan Jensen and Lisa Bluter, sponsored by Sidekick Books. Here now is my conversation with Christine Brennan. I am thrilled to welcome Christine Brennan, the author of On Her Game, Caitlin Clark and the Revolution in Women's Sports. Christine, thanks so much for joining me. You are a very accomplished writer, sports journalist, columnist. For those in Iowa who might not know, can you summarize briefly your career and how Caitlin Clark and when Caitlin Clark came into it?
Well, absolutely, Jack. Great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me. And I've been doing this for a while, and basically my career is over 40 years now, which is hard to believe. I think I started in kindergarten, but I'm a Big Ten, Midwestern, Great Lakes girl all the way. Grew up in the suburbs of Toledo, Ohio, loving sports and encouraged by my parents, especially my dad, to play sports at a time when girls were not encouraged to love or play sports. Started out my career of sports journalism at the Miami Herald and then came to the Washington Post, where I worked for 12 years and had a best-selling book on figure skating, of all things, Inside Edge, after the Tanya Nancy saga, and left the Post and have been on my own with USA Today contract, of course. Very honored to have that platform at USA Today to be their national sports columnist, as well as CNN, ABC News, PBS NewsHour, a lot of alphabet soup there. And you asked about the Caitlin Clark phenomenon and how this all kind of intersects. Well, I've covered a lot of women's Final Fours. I've covered the WNBA, I covered the Olympics in '96, but I also have covered many other things. And so I was not at those women's Final Fours where Caitlin Clark was leading Iowa to those incredible and magical performances and those great wins in the Final Four and then on to the finals twice. But I was watching from home and people texting me and I was texting them, and especially men, guys who I've never heard from before, who were just amazed by Caitlin Clark, loving the magic of her performances, chucking it from the parking lot, it's going in. And that told me something very quickly, that there were men who I couldn't have cared less about women's basketball, but they cared about her and they were riveted. And I think it helped me understand the phenomenon, the incredible Caitlin Clark effect, as we talk about, and as we see just exploding in our country now. And it taught me that I was glad I wasn't on press row. I was glad that I was seeing it as an observer and reacting to this with, I've been lucky to see a lot. I've covered so many Olympics, so many Super Bowls, NFL, Washington football team, etc. And to see this and to be amazed to the point where I'm watching replays and I'm intrigued. And then hearing from so many other people who didn't care about women's basketball or women's sports, that they were intrigued, they were loving it, they were planning their day around the starting time of Iowa games. That really, really informed me and showed me the magnitude of this story. And I started to write a few columns. One thing led to another, had a book offer, and I took it. And, well, here we are now.
So in your experience, Christine, you've covered everything from Carl Lewis in the 1984 Olympics to Billie Jean King and Cheryl Swoopes, Lisa Leslie in the 1996 Olympics. All of those were huge. Where does Caitlin Clark compare in the pantheon of biggest superstars in sports, not just women's basketball, in sports. And why do you think, if she is up there with some of the greats, why do you think she's there?
That's a key question. I explore this a lot in the book. Why? Why her? Why is it this person? A few things. I don't have to tell anyone watching us in Iowa about the love of girls and women's basketball in the state of Iowa and the great and grand history of 6-on-6 girls basketball going all the way back to the 1920s. So over 100 years now. And I detail that in the book. And in fact, in On Her Game, I have a chapter that's titled, If You Build It, She Will Come, to play off that fabulous movie that one of my favorite movies of all time, Field of Dreams. And of course, the incredible love of and respect for women's basketball and girls basketball that goes back 100 years. So there should be no surprise to anyone that out of those, on the foundation of all of those great 6-on-6 players, including Jan Jensen and Lisa Bluter, who I'll be with July 16th at the University of Iowa Athletics Hall of Fame for our big book event there in Iowa City. Out of that comes this amazing young player. Over 50 years of Title IX, of course, the nation has fallen in love with what we've created with our daughters, with our nieces. The girl next door you wave at as she's taking her equipment in the car to go to play soccer or volleyball or whatever, basketball. We have all witnessed this in every neighborhood in America. And here it is, Iowa, so appropriate that it would be Iowa. And I had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Christine Grant for a Big Ten football magazine, the program for the Big Ten championship back in 2012. And we talked for quite a while, and I include so much of her in the book. And her voice is there talking about how she fought for girls and women's sports. And of course, being the first women's athletic director at the University of Iowa, and how she is seen as such a pioneer. So all of that, I think there's something so important though. You mentioned when you talked about the great feats from so many women's sports teams, athletes that we've had in this country. Almost every single one we can think of, including, again, the Olympics, but also Serena Williams winning at Wimbledon, or the Olympics, Venus Williams, et cetera. Those are international performances, often with the athlete wearing the red, white, and blue of the United States. Katie Ledecky, Simone Biles, again, Serena Williams, whatever. The greatest names, they were representing the country. So you could have the nation fall in love with them and cheering for them as a point of national pride during an Olympics, during a Wimbledon, US Open, et cetera. In this case, and of course, I think everyone knows how I feel about Caitlin and how she should have been on the Olympic team. That was one of the worst decisions ever in sports, and the worst I've ever seen in my coverage of the Olympics in terms of team selection. Just a horrible decision. I replay all of that and have new reporting on the Olympic snub in the book. But the fact is, Caitlin's represented the country several times in basketball, in tournaments at a younger age. But all of this is happening not because she's on the Olympic team, not because she's representing the country internationally. Of course, she should have been, but she's not. This is coming with her wearing, as you well know, the black and gold of Iowa, and emanating from the middle of the country, the beautiful heartland, Big Ten country that I love so much. And it's coming out. When does the middle of the country tell the coasts, the East Coast, West Coast, what is important, what's the big deal? Well, this time they sure did, but it shows the magnitude of the love for Caitlin Clark and the groundswell of support, that it wasn't an Olympic performance, that it wasn't standing on the podium with a gold medal. Again, it should have been, but the fact is it's organic, what happens with her. And I think it just shows how much this country loves this young athlete. And I go back to her being an entertainer, even more than a basketball player. I mean, of course, she's a basketball player, but she is a high wire act. She is an entertainer. It's like Tiger Woods. You just couldn't take your eyes off him. You cannot take your eyes off of her. That's a chapter title as well. You can't take your eyes off of her. And that is exactly, I think, what this is. And so many people, whoever it is out there, I assume it's less and less every day, the people who want to bring her down, who want to say she's not a big deal, who want to add other players' names in the sentence with her. Well, I don't know that they have figured out just why it is that Caitlin Clark is the one. And I hope in my book, as I've just said, that I've put out some things there, reported some things, gave a few ideas and thoughts for conversation for people. And then I have to say, too, her personality. I got to know her. I asked a lot of questions. And as I came back after the Paris Olympics, I went right to Indiana and followed the team for the rest of the season for this book. And she is even better than you'd hope she would be in person. And I know a lot of people who are watching us know Caitlin Clark, and they know this. But I am happy to tell that story for the vast audience that loves her so much, that she is better in person. And you know how sometimes you get this, and it's happened with me, where people say, well, don't tell me, is she okay? I'm kind of, people were nervous. I hope she's not a mean person in person or whatever. It's like, oh, no, no. You would be so pleased to meet her because she's even better than you thought she would be. And the maturity, taking it all in, all the incoming, all the controversies, everything thrown at her, the way she handled it, every answer, just terrific, so well thought out, so respectful. If we have a more publicly appreciative person in our country, I'd like to know who they are. She so appreciates everything that she's been given, even though she's worked so hard for it. She's really appreciates the moment, everything that she's got, and the giving back and the autographs before games, after games, what she means for little girls and little boys. Absolutely extraordinary.
So I take it you decided to write this book because of all the things you just mentioned. Can you tell me about what the reporting for your book entailed? Who did you talk to? And without giving away anything, because I know you want people to buy your book, what can even the biggest Iowa/Caitlin Clark fan learn? Someone who may think, well, I know everything about Caitlin Clark. What could they learn from this book?
The good news is I ended up talking to a lot of those people who know everything. And I've got stories that I believe have not been told, or certainly have been rarely told. I mean, for me, it was simply starting to ask questions and talk to people. So Kate Martin and I spent a half hour together in a lobby of an Indianapolis hotel in Las Vegas, who she was with at the time, played against the Fever in September. And just what a delight. The honesty, telling stories, what about her? And I think what's new is that I had Kate Martin talking about Caitlin dealing with some of number one, the losing that she had to deal with early on with the Fever in that first season, how she handled that, but also how she handled so much of the criticism or the controversy, whether it be race related, just people maybe not liking a new person coming in and doing whatever they were doing, and how dare you come in? And even though, of course, a rising tide lifts all boats, which I say throughout the book, how the spotlight being on Caitlin Clark then, of course, helps all these other players get the attention that they've been deserving for years and never got from the male dominated mainstream sports media until now. So Caitlin is bringing eyeballs that are then helping everyone understand and appreciate these great players. But nonetheless, there's been a lot of criticism. I know everyone knows that, and how she handled all of that. So even Kate Martin talking about after the Kennedy Carter hip check, which is a whole chapter in the book. And I go into that, but Kate Martin's quotes were just so important about how Caitlin Clark, I think I won't go into too much detail, but something happened just a couple of minutes after that horrible moment that should have been called a flagrant foul and was a day later after the whole nation was engulfed in the controversy. But just how, again, something that happens right away and Caitlin handles herself so beautifully. And how is that? Well, someone like Kate Martin talking about that. So a great kind of narrator on some issues with Caitlin is Kate Martin. Dixon Jensen, the AAU coach, all Iowa attack. I've got a few pictures in the book that his son actually took, and they were kind enough to give them to me for the book. And the stories from him and young Caitlin, and how she got out of a jam, or some of the just incredible things that she did that I'm sure some people know, of course, but not most. I also talked to Muffet McGraw at length several times about how Caitlin, of course, almost went to Notre Dame. And then I take that a step further. And I thought, well, let's picture that. What if Caitlin Clark went to Notre Dame? Or we know Gino Auriemma, who uttered the worst prediction in the history of predictions that I also have in the book about his terrible guess about how Caitlin was not ready for the WNBA. You know, he didn't recruit her, but had he? Well, what happens with Caitlin Clark? What happens with women's sports, women's basketball, and the history of women's sports if Caitlin Clark doesn't go to Iowa? And how different it would have been. Is Caitlin Clark Caitlin Clark? A huge issue. I dive right into it with some important voices there as well. And Kristen Meyer, of course, the high school coach from Dowling Catholic. Great stuff from Kristen. I do think there's a lot of new material there. But I also think, and I think this is important for a lot of fans, I do relive the entire 4 years at Iowa. And even though the book was kind of centered around the WNBA season, I actually, which of course it is, I've got the whole season. I've got, again, the Olympic snub, all new reporting there, the charter flights, why they occurred because of Caitlin Clark, of course, for the WNBA players. But I also do relive some of the great moments throughout the entire from freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year so that people can relive that and have those voices and have those moments. And I highlight things that I thought were particularly memorable. So I try to give a very, maybe a fresh look at a lot of things. And I did have a few people in Iowa who covered her, which I did not do, read over it, edit it, make sure that I had captured things correctly because I know that I was not around. And I'm doing this as a national journalist, and it's going to be a book that's out there nationwide. So I was very cognizant of what I knew and what I did not know, and asked so many people for their thoughts because I wanted to tell the accurate picture.
So, Christine, you are a columnist and you're paid to have an opinion, at least on many things. You do make an argument in this book. The book discusses, and I'm going to quote a description, quote, troubling outbreaks of jealousy and resentment as a white player became the top story in a predominantly black league. So at least, please tell me if I'm mischaracterizing your argument, but you believe that jealousy exists, jealousy and resentment. Why do you argue that it's more than just a social media narrative?
For sure, and yes, I mean that's in the book promotional material and on the jacket, the cover. I believe is where that comes from as well. And again, my reporting. I, of course, had my eyes open and was watching and hearing some of the things that were happening, and saw the complaints on social media, and started to delve into it. And you know what? My opinion, maybe worthwhile, maybe not. But I knew people that would have great opinions on a topic that is very, very important in our country, in our polarized world, right? Politically polarized, culturally, socially polarized. The United States is right now, the greatest country in the world. But we got a lot of people tugging and pulling at certain things. And this includes sports, as it always does. And so what I decided to do was talk to, have a myriad of voices. But one of the first people I went to was Dr. Harry Edwards, who I've known for a long time, a friend. And of course, he is a great civil rights leader and was the impetus behind the Black Power salute at the 1968 Mexico City Olympics by two American sprinters. I also talked to Brianna Scurry, the goalkeeper on the 1999, the wildly popular 1999 U.S. women's soccer team, the first Black superstar of the most famous women's team on earth, the U.S. women's national team, and among others. And I have their voices talking about what the WNBA could have and should have done to prepare a 74% Black and mixed race league for this moment, and what the WNBA did not do. So it's their voices, not mine. As I again reported this, talked to people, tried to get a sense of perspective on why it would be that the best thing that has ever happened to the WNBA, Caitlin Clark, and the eyeballs she brings and the interest she brings, and we saw it when she was gone and was injured, and literally the entire WNBA lost more than half of its television audience. One person's injured, and more than half of the TV audience disappears. That didn't happen with Tiger Woods. No way. Didn't happen with Michael Jordan. Only Caitlin Clark. The meaning of this one singular athlete, player, person, extraordinary. So to go back and then talk, obviously, before Caitlin was injured, before the 2025 season, to these experts about what could have and should have been done and how unprepared the WNBA was for this. To be clear, this is a league that is 74% Black, and also a sizable portion of gay women, although we don't have the statistics on that, unfortunately. And and you've got someone coming in who becomes the star of the league, and there certainly are, we understand, I think a lot of us understand a new person coming into the workplace and how things are happen. And so how the WNBA did not prepare for this, how they did not talk to the players about it. Again, not my words, but the words of great, great Americans and great civil rights leaders like Brianna Scurry, like Dr. Harry Edwards, to talk about these issues. And by the way, both Dr. Edwards, Harry Edwards, and Brianna Scurry are huge Caitlin Clark fans and see the incredible upside and potential for all the players having Caitlin Clark around. Those are the voices. That's the kind of message that might have helped with whatever we saw with some of the concern or some of the issues and the physical play that Caitlin did receive. And of course, the WNBA leadership being unable to say her name or wanting to include, say Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Well, no. If someone asked you about Caitlin Clark, you don't have to add another name. But that we saw that certainly on occasion with Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner. So lots and lots of issues there. I delve into all of them in hopefully a very readable and entertaining and informative way as I work my way through the book and through these important issues, while also focusing on the Caitlin Clark magic. That is a story that of course everyone wants to read and everyone wants to be able to tell.
Can you tell me about your upcoming appearance in Iowa City, or just outside Iowa City, at the UI Athletics Hall of Fame with Jan Jensen and Lisa Bluter? That's coming up this summer. Can you give people more details on that?
Absolutely. I'm so excited for this. I've got quite a book tour planned around the country and certainly through the Midwest. And this one, I'm just so looking forward to. July 16th, 7 p.m. at the University of Iowa Athletics Hall of Fame. Sidekick Books is putting this on. And you have to sign up. So, I mean, it'd be great if you just showed up, but you do need to sign up. You get a book, you get appetizers, hors d'oeuvres, and a talk with me, with Jan Jensen, and with Lisa Bluter. And what's really interesting is I've interviewed Lisa Bluter quite a bit. Her voice is throughout the book as well. And it's just great, especially on the early days in Iowa, 6-on-6 girl basketball. Of course, she played. And of course, Jan Jensen was one of the great stars. But I've never met either woman. And of course, they are such great leaders. I don't have to tell anyone watching how important they are, but I'm so glad that the nation got to see how important they are and what wonderful people they are during the last couple of years with Caitlin's run and Iowa's run to the NCAA finals, and then also the interest that carried over as Jan Jensen took over the team. And even Lisa Bluter's circles, talking about Title IX, talking about the importance of Christine Grant. I've got a wonderful anecdote that ties that in with Caitlin Clark. So the idea for me, what an honor. I'm so excited, so happy, and just can't wait to be up there with Lisa Bluter, with Jan Jensen, talking about Caitlin Clark, talking about my book, talking about Iowa, the history of Iowa, all the things that are so important that led to the moment, this great moment, national moment that is even beyond sports. It's a huge part of our culture and society, this Caitlin Clark effect, the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. And we're going to have that conversation. Everyone obviously can buy a book or two or three. You can give them, we'll sign them, we will personalize them, anything people want. And I think I can probably twist a few arms and make sure that Jan Jensen and Lisa Bluter sign the books as well. Because I mean, come on, Iowa people, you don't really want me, you want them. And so we'll be there as long as anyone needs us to talk and sign books. Love to be the last person there, just turning out the lights. We hope that I know there's still some space available. So we'd love to see you on July 16th, which I believe is a Wednesday. But check me on that. Yes, Wednesday, July 16th, 7 p.m. And go through the website, and I put it on my social media. Lisa has retweeted it a few times, so you'll find it there quite easily, and we'd love to see you there. Go to the Sidekick Books website, and how you'd find that is that you can put that in a search. You can put my name in a search. The book On Her Game, that's the title of the book, On Her Game, Caitlin Clark and the Revolution in Women's Sports. And you can definitely just search for that, and you'll see the sign up, and click on that, and I'll let go from there.
You're a national columnist. Why do you feel it's important to come to local spaces like that in Iowa City, and where else might people find you on your book tour that might be relatively close to Iowa City?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm going to be in Iowa for 3 straight days. We'll be at Ames on the 14th, July 14th, a book event there. It's an Iowa State territory, of course, but the Fennelly family, I will be there with them. And I've known Bill Fennelly since he was at the University of Toledo. I grew up in Toledo and have been involved a little bit with the women's basketball team there over the years. So, and then Des Moines on the 15th, Franklin Events Center, I believe it's called, but easy to find. Des Moines, Beaverdale Books, and that will be on the night of the 15th. So 14th in Ames, 15th in Des Moines, and then the 16th in Iowa City as I, crisscross your beautiful state. And why it's important, I'm going to do a ton of events in Indiana. I'm starting out in my hometown, actually my high school. But why? It's because I'm from Toledo, and I'm Big Ten all the way, and Big Ten Network is still one of my favorite networks. And watching, field hockey or lacrosse, women's, men's, whatever, I'm a Big Ten person, and I am a Midwesterner at my core. So of course I want to spend time in Iowa, and I'm thrilled to meet everyone there. I think so many of us fell in love with Iowa all over again. Field of Dreams, absolutely. Dyersville, if you build it, he will come, all of that. And I think that, we felt, once again, Iowa, the magic of Iowa, which I do write about in the book and talk about, just this magical, exciting, wonderful place, Field of Dreams indeed. And here we are, and I know some people might roll their eyes about someone using Field of Dreams so much, but to me, it's just part of the magic. And then here we are again with Iowa, giving the nation just one of the greatest gifts we could ever have, which is someone of the quality, the character, the role model that Caitlin Clark is. And so you bet. And if the book is really taking off, I'll come back to Iowa in August and do more events. I mean, it's that important to me.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish up here, Christine?
I just look forward to seeing everyone. I mean, kids, if girls and boys want to wear their uniforms, come again with the one, of course, in Iowa City. Come and get your picture taken with Lisa Bluter, with Jan Jensen. I'll photobomb everyone in the back. Happy to just take the pictures and be the one snapping the pictures with the iPhones. I'll do that. Would love to meet you, see you, hear your stories. Every one of my appearances in Ames, Des Moines, and in Iowa City, there will be Q&A. You'll get a chance to ask any kinds of questions about Caitlin, my reporting, things that I found out as a national journalist diving in to this most spectacular of stories, the Caitlin Clark story, and plenty of time to hear your opinions as well. So it's really give and take about, I think, the best story in our country, the most uplifting story in our country. I mean, my goodness, what she's done and continues to do, remarkable. And I am just honored as a journalist to be able to tell that story.
Christine Brennan, author of On Her Game, Caitlin Clark, and the Revolution in Women's Sports. Christine, thanks so much for joining me.
My pleasure, Jack. Thanks for having me.